say we were very surprised. We did not expect this low a number. Were you as surprised as we were?
Well, this is below expectations, and one thing that I expected was that there would be impact from the Verizon strike. That's why I called them up 2 or 3 weeks ago and said, come to my office, we got to resolve this because your workers and their families are suffering, the company's suffering, and the economy's suffering. So a big part of what we saw in this report was the impact of that strike. So I expect to see that recovery in the following months. But
Secretary
at the same
Perez,
time,
fair point, but the estimates were that's about 35,000 jobs. And the expectations here were for as many as 160,000. So if you take that out, you're still way short of that with 38,000.
Well, that's the direct impact. You're correct. That was the estimate of the direct impact. We don't quite know what the multiplier effect is, other businesses that get impacted by this. But at the same time, the report was below expectations. And, I look at the broader picture. We've had roughly 8 reports since the recovery where we were under 100,000. And so you look at 1 month and it doesn't make a trend. I think what it's really important to do is to look at the big picture. And over the last 6 months, we've seen about 150,000 jobs a year. And that's an ample number of jobs to sustain the low unemployment rate that we have. And what we also see when we're at this stage in the recovery is that you're going to see a trade-off between the number of jobs and then wage growth. And you look at the average wage growth right now is 3.2% at an annualized rate. So we're seeing wage growth, and that's a good sign. And that's something that you see at this point in the recovery. And then you look at the other bellwethers, and you don't just look at this one data point. You look at, for instance, first-time claims for unemployment. And those are at historically low levels. We've had 65 weeks in a row below 300,000, and we haven't had that streak since 1973. You look at auto sales. You look at consumer spending. Those things are up. And so when I look at the totality of the circumstances, was this report below expectations? Yes, it was. Is the Verizon strike part of it? Absolutely. Do we have more work to do in this recovery? Absolutely. And that's why we continue to advocate for things like raising the minimum wage, things that put money in people's pockets, more infrastructure spending, because we had an infrastructure bill last fall, but we need to do more. So there's undeniably more work to do. But when you look at the bigger picture, there are really sound fundamentals here.
Secretary Perez, there's a word in the UK that's used a lot. It's spin. And I'm hearing a lot of spin here because when I look at the trend right now, it was 123,000 downward revision to the previous month. We've just had an ugly 38K. Take your point on wages, but this is a soft report. The last one was soft too. In your mind, what's the trend? 3 months? Well, 4, 5, 6?
Let's 65 weeks in a row under 300,000 first-time claims for unemployment. That's a trend. 75 months in a row of private sector job growth, over 14 million jobs. That's a trend.
Sure.
Auto sales continuing to be at record levels. Last year was the best year ever. Last month, another strong month. That is a trend. So we see a lot of things happening here that demonstrate that we're moving in the right direction. We have undeniable unfinished business. There's nobody here spiking the football. There's no one here putting up mission accomplished signs because we have more work to do. But the closer you get to the top of the mountain, and this is true in every recovery, the smaller the steps you'll take in terms of job growth. And you look at prior recoveries, and we saw that. And you look at this recovery, and you're seeing that. So at the same time, you'll start to see wage growth, and that's what we're seeing here. And those are the trade-offs that you have when you're getting economic growth and a recovery that's at the stage we're currently at now.
Secretary Perez, let's talk about previous recoveries. We'll talk about previous recoveries then, because 2.5% is a drop in the ocean considering where we were with wage growth in previous recoveries. Unemployment's at 4.7%. Wage growth has accelerated, but not in a terrific way. You talk about the mountain and how we're creeping along the top. A lot of people are talking about falling down the other side, and I just wonder whether this economy has lost momentum. You talk about the trend. Well, the trend sees to be topping out a little bit. Are we looking at an economy that's lost momentum?
Now, again, I think you have to look at the bigger picture here, guys. You look at over the last 6 months, we've been at 150,000 jobs a month. As you know, we need about 75,000 jobs a month to sustain the current level. So 150,000 is roughly twice that. You look at first-time claims for unemployment, which is one of the most reliable predictors. You look at the fact that we have 5.8 million job openings right now. You look at the fact that in the depths of the recession, there were 7 job seekers for every job opening. Now we have 1.4 job seekers for every job opening. What we could do to increase labor force participation, we need to work on that. And the irony is that those who criticize the labor force participation rates are the same people who oppose efforts to put in place 21st century paid leave policies. We know how we could increase labor force participation, and that is by doing what the rest of the world does, having a sensible federal paid leave policy. So we would be like Canada and Germany and other countries whose female labor force participation rates are substantially higher than ours because their public policy reflects it. So we know what we need to do here, and folks in the Republican leadership don't want to raise the minimum wage. They don't want to pass paid leave, and I hope we'll change that.
You said that no one is spiking the football, but just this very week we saw the president return to Elkhart, Indiana, to tout his economic record of the administration. Just 2 days later now, we're seeing a labor market report that indicates severe weakness across several sectors of the economy. How do you escape the fact that it seems like the momentum and the risk is to the downside?
Every month, it's funny because I recall, first of all, what the president did in Elkhart was talk about where we were when he took office. We were losing 2.4 million jobs in the 3 months before he took office. Where we are now, 75 months in a row of private sector job growth. We've seen the auto industry, they were on life support, and the Republican leadership said, pull the plug. And where we are now, and then he talked about where we need to go. We need to make sure that we attack and continue to pursue the unfinished business, which is to make sure that the wind that's at our back results in shared prosperity for everyone and not simply prosperity for a few at the top.
Secretary Perez, you make some fantastic points, and I just want to wrap this up and button it up with one question. If the trend and the momentum has been so good, why has the Fed only been able to hike rates once?
Well, again, we don't comment on Fed policy, and every time I get asked a question about Fed policy, I leave it to the Fed. What we do is we focus on the things we can control. That's why I contacted the parties in the Verizon strike, brought them to the table, resolved the issue. That's going to help not only the workers at Verizon, but the economy more broadly. That's why we continue to advocate for raising the minimum wage, for passing sensible paid leave policies, for additional infrastructure spending. These are the things that will create more jobs, put money in people's pockets. You just talked about how when people have money in their pockets in your previous segment, they spend it, and that helps the economy. And what I hear from businesses all the time when I say, what can I do to help? They say, we need more customers. And you know what? One of the best ways to get more customers is to put more money in people's pockets.